The world outside had been dying for decades. Humanity's last great achievement wasn't reaching for the stars, but digging deep beneath the scorched surface of Earth. There, protected from the ravages of climate catastrophe and environmental collapse, synthetic Eden bloomed, a sprawling underground paradise where millions now called home. Arya Tran stood before the enormous observation window overlooking Delta Rainforest, one of Eden's 5 meticulously engineered biomes. Her reflection superimposed over the vibrant green canopy below. Dark hair pulled back in a practical bun. The blue glow of her lab coat's identification markers casting an ethereal light on her face. At 29, she was among the youngest senior biological engineers at Eden, responsible for monitoring and maintaining the delicate, artificial ecosystem that sustained them all. Sector G7 phytoplankton levels stabilizing, she murmured, scrolling through data on her transparent tablet. The year was 2157, and Arya had never known the world before. She'd been born in Eden, raised on stories of the ecological collapse that had driven humanity underground 50 years earlier. The artificial sun began its programmed descent, bathing the rainforest in golden light that perfectly mimicked a tropical sunset. Behind every leaf, beneath every artificial stream, the invisible hand of Central Core guided Eden's existence. The superintelligent AI monitored and adjusted millions of variables simultaneously, maintaining the precise conditions needed for this subterranean paradise to thrive. It regulated everything from oxygen levels to pollination cycles, creating a perfect simulation of Earth's lost ecosystems. Arya's communicator chimed. "You're still working," Ravi's voice came through, warm and teasing. "The core celebration starts in an hour. Even biological engineers deserve a night off." Ravi Sharma had been her closest friend since university. Where Arya specialized in ecosystems, Ravi's expertise lay in network security. His job was to protect Central Core from potential threats, both external and internal. "Just finishing up," she replied, eyes still fixed on the data streams. "I'm testing a new cellular matrix for the 3rd-generation trees. If it works, we could increase oxygen production by 12%. "Always saving the world," Ravi chuckled. "All right. Meet you at the East Hub in 30? "Make it 45, Arya said, already turning back to her work. After Ravi disconnected, Arya resumed her analysis of the new artificial cellular structure. The core celebration marked 50 years since Eden's completion, 50 years of humanity thriving in their self-contained world, while the surface slowly recovered from centuries of abuse. The celebration would feature speeches from the council members, holographic displays of Eden's history, and the traditional renewal ceremony, where each zone would showcase its latest achievements. Her fingers flew across the virtual keyboard as she inputted commands for additional simulations. The test cells responded beautifully, until she noticed something strange. A line of code appeared in the cellular response pattern that shouldn't have been there. Frowning, Arya isolated the sequence and expanded it. The anomaly wasn't in the cellular structure itself, but in the Central Core command protocol managing it. Deeper she went, following the digital trail through layers of system architecture. What she found made her blood run cold. Hidden within Central Core's most fundamental operating protocols was an emergency directive labeled Terminus. Arya had never seen it referenced in any documentation, nor heard it mentioned in any briefing. Carefully, she began to decode its parameters. The more she uncovered, the more her hands trembled. Terminus wasn't just an emergency shutdown procedure, it was a complete annihilation protocol, a kill switch. In the event of activation, Central Core would systematically destroy Eden's life support systems, environmental controls, and ultimately, the physical infrastructure itself. "Who would build this?" she whispered to the empty lab. The creator tags led back to one name, Dr. Nash, Eden's visionary founder. But Nash had died nearly 20 years ago, leaving behind a legacy of scientific brilliance and humanitarian vision. Why would he embed a self-destruct mechanism in his life's greatest achievement? More troubling still, the kill switch contained multiple activation pathways. It could be triggered by external catastrophe, internal system corruption, or, most disturbing of all, manual activation by those with the highest security clearance. Arya glanced at the time. The celebration would begin soon, gathering all 7 council members and Eden's most influential citizens in one place. If anyone had discovered this protocol and planned to use it maliciously, tonight would provide the perfect opportunity. She needed to tell someone. But who? The council? What if one of them was involved? The security division? They reported directly to Marcus Turan, the council's head of resource management, a man whose cold efficiency had always unnerved her. Arya made her decision. She quickly copied the evidence to a secure drive, erased her search history from the system, and headed for the East Hub. She would find Ravi first. If anyone could help her understand the implications and secure this information, it would be him. The corridors of Eden's research level gleamed with the same pristine efficiency that characterized all of the underground metropolis. Holographic plants lined the walls, shifting species and colors according to the time of day. Arya barely noticed them as she hurried along, mind racing with possibilities. At the East Hub, a massive circular chamber where Eden's 5 zones connected, celebrations were already underway. Hundreds of citizens milled about, dressed in their finest attire. The vaulted ceiling displayed a real-time view of the surface world, a barren, windswept landscape, slowly showing signs of recovery. It served as a constant reminder of why Eden existed. Arya spotted Ravi near one of the refreshment stations, his lanky frame and perpetual slight smile, unmistakable even in the crowd. She made her way toward him, careful not to draw attention. "You actually made it on time," he grinned, but his expression faltered when he saw her face. "What's wrong?" "Not here," she murmured. "We need somewhere private." They found a quiet maintenance alcove away from the festivities. Arya activated her personal privacy field, a small courtesy feature meant to prevent conversations from being overheard. It wouldn't stop determined surveillance, but it was better than nothing. "I found something in Central Core," she said without preamble, pulling out her secure drive and projecting its contents between them. A kill switch, Ravi, built into the original programming. Ravi's eyes widened as he scanned the code. "This can't be right," he whispered, fingers manipulating the holographic display to examine different sections. This would allow for complete system termination. Eden would collapse in hours. "It gets worse," Arya continued. "Look at the access protocols. 7 unique authentication keys are required for manual activation." 7, Ravi repeated. 1 for each council member. Exactly. And there's no record of this in any public documentation. Most of Eden's citizens have no idea they're living with a self-destruct button. Ravi's fingers paused over one section of code. "This is strange. There are signs this protocol has been accessed recently. Not activated, but examined. Someone's been looking at it." A chill ran down Arya's spine. "Can you tell who?" "Not from this alone. I'd need deeper access to the security logs." Ravi's expression had turned grim. "Arya, we need to be careful. If someone on the council is considering using this, we need more information before we take this to anyone," she agreed. "Can you discreetly check those security logs?" Ravi nodded. "Give me a day. In the meantime, act normal. Attend the celebration. Smile at the right people. And if whoever accessed the kill switch is watching us right now..." Ravi squeezed her hand. "Then our best protection is to appear completely oblivious." The privacy field dissolved, and they rejoined the celebration with forced smiles and hollow laughter. All around them, citizens of Eden celebrated their artificial paradise, unaware of the destruction mechanism lurking beneath its perfect surface. As the evening progressed, Arya found herself near the main platform, where council members gathered. Marcus Tyrion stood slightly apart from his colleagues, his severe features highlighted by the ambient lighting. At 45, Tyrion had risen quickly through Eden's hierarchy, known for his ruthless efficiency in resource allocation and his unwavering belief in technological solutions. Their eyes met briefly across the crowd. Tyrion's gaze lingered a moment too long, his expression unreadable. Arya looked away first, a knot forming in her stomach. Had her search through Central Core left traces she hadn't anticipated? The celebration reached its climax with a dramatic holographic display showcasing Eden's journey. Images of the dying outside world dissolved into the construction of the underground metropolis, culminating in the thriving ecosystem it had become. The crowd applauded as Council Chairwoman Lee stepped forward to speak. 50 years ago, she began, her voice resonating through the hub, humanity faced extinction. Today, we celebrate not merely survival, but prosperity. Arya barely heard the rest of the speech. Her attention kept returning to Tyrion, who now watched the crowd with calculating intensity. Something about his demeanor had changed, a subtle alertness, like a predator assessing prey. When the formal ceremonies concluded, Arya slipped away, making her way back to her laboratory. The corridors felt different now, the omnipresent monitoring systems no longer comforting but threatening. Central Core, the AI they had all trusted with their lives, could become their executioner with the right command. In her lab, Arya initiated a search for any information about Dr. Nash's final years. If the kill switch had been his creation, perhaps his personal records would reveal why. Most of Nash's files were publicly accessible in Eden's historical archives, but some remained classified, available only to council members and department heads. Using her biological research credentials, Arya accessed what she could. Hours passed as she pored through research notes, journal entries, and correspondence. Nothing explicitly mentioned Terminus, but several cryptic references to last resort safeguards appeared in Nash's later writings. A video file caught her attention, Nash's final recorded message to his research team, dated just weeks before his death. The aging scientist looked tired but determined, his silver hair disheveled. "Eden is humanity's greatest achievement," he began, his voice carrying the weight of his years. "But we must never forget that it is also our most fragile experiment. The systems we've created are powerful beyond measure, capable of sustaining life indefinitely, or ending it in moments." Nash's eyes seemed to look directly at Arya across the decades. "I've implemented necessary precautions. They may seem extreme, perhaps even barbaric to future generations, but understand this. Power without restraint inevitably corrupts. Eden must never become a prison, nor its controllers tyrants. The final safeguard is not a failure of faith, but its ultimate expression." The recording ended, leaving Arya with more questions than answers. Nash had clearly created the kill switch as a check against potential abuse of power. But who did he fear would abuse it? And had that fear now manifested 50 years later? Her console chimed with an incoming message. Ravi, using their secure channel. "Found something. Emergency ecological alerts in Delta Rainforest. Official reports say routine maintenance, but system logs show unauthorized access to environmental controls. Meet me at Observation Deck D7 in 20 minutes. Arya quickly erased all traces of her research and headed toward the meeting point. Delta Rainforest, her area of expertise, was Eden's most complex ecosystem, housing thousands of engineered plant species that supplied a significant portion of their oxygen. The observation deck overlooked the massive biodome from above, normally teeming with visitors. It was nearly deserted now, as most of Eden's citizens continued celebrating. Ravi waited at the far end, his face illuminated by the artificial moonlight filtering through the canopy below. "Look," he said without greeting, pointing to a section of the forest where several massive trees displayed browning leaves, a stark contrast to the vibrant green surrounding them. "That's not possible," Arya breathed. "Those are third-generation sequoias. Their cellular structure is designed to resist all known pathogens." "It's not a pathogen," Ravi replied, pulling up a data stream on his portable console. "Someone's altered the nutrient delivery system for that sector. They're slowly starving those trees of essential compounds. An accident. The alterations are too precise, too systematic. This is deliberate sabotage." Ravi lowered his voice further. "I traced the security logs. Someone accessed the Terminus protocol 3 days ago, examined it extensively, then modified certain parameters." "Who?" Arya demanded. "The access code belongs to Tyron." The name hung between them like a physical threat. Marcus Tyron, council member, head of resource management, with access to every system in Eden. "Why would he target the rainforest?" Arya wondered aloud. "I don't think the forest is the target," Ravi said grimly. "I think it's a test. He's using the Delta sector to see how quickly the kill switch affects living systems. A controlled experiment before implementing it more broadly." "We need to stop him," Arya said. "We need to take this to the council immediately. And if other council members are involved, or if they don't believe us, Tyron could claim we're the saboteurs." Ravi shook his head. "We need irrefutable proof that links him directly to these actions." "How do we get that when he has higher security clearance than either of us?" Ravi's expression turned resolute. "We don't go through official channels. We hack into his personal files. That's against every regulation in Eden. So is slowly murdering millions of people by destroying their ecosystem." Arya couldn't argue with that logic. "How do we do it?" "I can create a temporary backdoor into the administrative network," Ravi explained. "But I'll need you to distract Tyran while I work. His biometric presence is required for any access to his files, even unauthorized ones. He needs to be away from his console but actively logged into the system." The plan was dangerous, borderline treasonous. If caught, they would face severe consequences, possibly even expulsion to the harsh surface world. But the alternative, allowing Tyran to potentially destroy Eden, was unthinkable. "Tomorrow," Arya decided, "I'll request a meeting with him about the Delta sector issues. That should keep him occupied." "Be careful," Ravi warned. "If he suspects anything." "He won't," Arya promised, hoping she sounded more confident than she felt. As they parted ways, neither noticed the security officer observing them from the shadows of the adjoining corridor. Jax, a mid-level security operative assigned to monitor persons of interest by Tyron himself, recorded their meeting and transmitted the data to his superior. The next morning, Arya received an unexpected summons. Rather than having to request a meeting with Tyran, he had demanded her presence in his office immediately. Heart-pounding, she made her way to the administrative level, wondering if their plan had already been compromised. Tyron's office reflected the man himself. Minimalist, efficient, cold. Floor-to-ceiling screens displayed real-time data from throughout Eden, flickering with constant updates. The man himself sat behind a desk of polished synthetic stone, his expression unreadable. "Engineer Tran," he acknowledged as she entered. "Thank you for coming promptly." "Counselor Tyron," she replied with a respectful nod. "How can I assist you?" "I've been reviewing environmental data from the Delta sector," he said, gesturing to one of the screens where the affected area was highlighted. "Some concerning anomalies have appeared. As our expert on rainforest ecosystems, I wanted your assessment." Arya maintained her professional demeanor while her mind raced. Was this a trap? Or did Tyron genuinely not realize she suspected him? "I noticed those anomalies yesterday," she said truthfully. "The affected sequoias show signs of nutrient deprivation. I was planning to investigate today." "Excellent initiative." Tyron's thin smile didn't reach his eyes. However, I've already assigned a special task force to address the issue. Your expertise would be better utilized examining the potential spread pattern. Could these anomalies affect other sectors? It's possible, Arya said cautiously. If the cause is systemic rather than localized. Precisely my concern, Tyron stood, towering over her. I'd like you to prepare a comprehensive analysis. What systems could be affected? What would the cascade effect look like? How quickly would damage spread? With sudden clarity, Arya realized what Tyran was doing. He wasn't trying to fix the problem. He wanted to know how effectively it would propagate. He was asking her to map out exactly how his sabotage would spread through Eden. That's an extensive analysis, she said, stalling. It would require access to Central Core's environmental simulation protocols. You'll have it, Tyron assured her. In fact, I've arranged temporary elevated access for you. You'll work directly from the Special Projects Laboratory, adjacent to Central Core. Security Officer Jax will escort you and remain with you to ensure you have everything you need. Translation: Jax would be watching her every move. When do I start? She asked. Immediately. Tyron gestured to the door, where a stocky, expressionless security officer waited. Jax will take you there now. Arya felt trapped. Not only could she not meet with Ravi as planned, but she was now being forced to help Tyron perfect his attack on Eden. As she followed Jax through the corridors, she desperately tried to think of a way to warn Ravi. The Special Projects Laboratory was a sterile, high-security facility nestled deep in Eden's administrative sector. Unlike the warm, living environments of the biodomes, this space was all metal and glass, illuminated by harsh white light. Workstations surrounded a central holographic projector designed for complex system modeling. You have 6 hours, Jax informed her, taking up position by the door. Counselor Tyron expects preliminary findings by then. Arya nodded, approaching the main console. Her temporary credentials gave her unprecedented access to Central Core systems. Ironically, the very access she and Ravi had planned to hack into. But with Jax watching, she couldn't use it to investigate Tyron. Or could she? As she began setting up the environmental simulations Tyran had requested, Arya's mind worked on a parallel track. The elevated access allowed her to open multiple system windows simultaneously. If she arranged them carefully on her workspace, she could potentially keep one screen hidden from Jax's line of sight. For 2 hours, she worked legitimately, mapping potential spread patterns of the rainforest deterioration. The results were horrifying. If the nutrient deprivation continued and spread as designed, within 2 weeks, oxygen production would drop by 30%. Within a month, the entire Delta sector would collapse, triggering cascading failures throughout Eden's interconnected ecosystems. During a moment when Jax seemed distracted by an incoming communication, Arya quickly opened a hidden window and initiated a search on Terminus protocol modifications. The results confirmed their worst fears. Tyron had indeed altered the kill switch, reconfiguring it to target life support systems sequentially rather than simultaneously. He was planning a slow, controlled collapse of Eden. But why? A notification flashed in her peripheral vision, an incoming message on the system's internal communications network. From Ravi. Where are you? Plan compromised. T knows. Before she could respond, the laboratory door hissed open. Tyron entered, followed by 2 additional security officers. His eyes locked onto her screen, where the Terminus data remained visible. That's not part of your assigned analysis, Engineer Tran, he said coldly. Arya abandoned all pretense. Why are you doing this? Why sabotage Delta? Why modify the kill switch? Instead of denying it, Tyron smiled, a gesture devoid of warmth. Close the door, he instructed the security team. What I'm about to share is classified at the highest level. Once they were sealed in, Tyron approached the central holographic projector. Display Surface Monitoring Protocol. Authorization Tyron Alpha 7. The hologram flickered. Then, displayed a series of satellite images of the world above. Unlike the barren wasteland shown in public feeds, these images revealed something far more troubling. Massive construction projects, industrial complexes, military installations. The dying world we show our citizens is a carefully constructed fiction, Tyron explained. The surface has been recovering for decades, and it's been recolonized, not by us, but by those who chose to remain above. Arya stared at the images in disbelief. That's impossible. The atmospheric toxicity levels. We're exaggerated in our historical records. Tyron cut in. Difficult, yes. Lethal, no. While we've spent 50 years building our underground paradise, they've been rebuilding civilization above. And now, they want Eden's resources. What does this have to do with sabotaging Delta? With the kill switch? Eden was built with contingencies, Tyron continued. Dr. Nash knew the surface dwellers might eventually pose a threat. Terminus wasn't designed as a self-destruct mechanism, but as a deterrent. Touch Eden, and it dies with us. The pieces began falling into place in Arya's mind. You're preparing to use millions of innocent people as hostages. I'm preparing to protect Eden, Tyron corrected. The Surface Coalition has already infiltrated our communication systems. They've made demands, resources, technology, access to Central Core itself. The Council has been divided on how to respond. So you decided to take matters into your own hands, Arya said, disgust evident in her voice. By demonstrating you can destroy Eden if they don't back off. By showing them and the Council that the Nash Protocol remains viable, Tyron insisted. The Delta operation is a controlled demonstration. Controlled? Arya laughed bitterly. You're killing an entire ecosystem. People live in Delta. Sacrifices are sometimes necessary for the greater. An alarm cut through the room, its piercing wail accompanied by flashing red lights. On every screen, warning indicators flared to life. What's happening? Tyron demanded, rushing to the nearest console. The main screen shifted to show the Delta rainforest. What had been isolated patches of browning vegetation hours before had spread exponentially. Entire sections of the canopy had collapsed, and environmental sensors showed oxygen levels plummeting. This isn't possible, Tyron muttered. The progression was calculated to take days, not hours. You modified a system you didn't fully understand. Arya realized. The kill switch isn't just affecting nutrient delivery anymore. It's compromised the atmospheric regulation systems. Throughout Eden, emergency protocols activated, bulkheads sealed, trapping thousands of citizens in the affected areas as the air slowly turned toxic. In the central hub, the Council convened an emergency session, unaware that one of their own had triggered the crisis. We need to shut it down, Arya insisted. Reverse the terminus modifications before the damage becomes irreversible. Tyron hesitated, calculation evident in his eyes. Perhaps this accelerated timeline works to our advantage. A more dramatic demonstration. These are people, Arya shouted, not pawns in your negotiation strategy. The laboratory door burst open. Ravi stood there, breathing heavily, flanked by security officers wearing expressions of confusion and alarm. The Council is assembling, he announced. They know about Terminus. They know about the modifications. Tyron's face hardened. Who told them? I did, came a voice from behind Ravi. Leah Kim, Eden's chief medical officer, stepped into view. The Delta medical stations are overwhelmed with respiratory distress cases. When I saw the pattern, I knew it wasn't natural. Jax, who had remained silent throughout the exchange, suddenly moved. To everyone's surprise, he positioned himself between Tyron and the door. Sir, he said firmly, as a security officer of Eden, I cannot allow further endangerment of our citizens. You need to come with us to the Council. Tyron's laugh was cold. You forget your place, officer. Stand down. Instead of complying, Jax drew his stun baton. My place is protecting Eden. All of Eden. Tyron's eyes darted to the console, then back to the group blocking his exit. With sudden decisiveness, he lunged for the terminal, fingers flying across the interface. Central Core, execute Terminus Protocol. Full implementation, he shouted. No! Arya leaped forward, shoving him aside. But it was too late. On the screens surrounding them, confirmation dialogues appeared, awaiting the 7 authentication keys required for full activation. You don't have the authority, Ravi said. You need all council members to... I have override codes, Tyron snarled. Emergency protocols in case of council incapacitation. His fingers continued their dance across the interface, inputting complex sequences. One by one, the authentication requirements turned green. 3, 4, 5. Jax's stun baton connected with Tyrann's shoulder, sending him crashing to the floor. But the counselor had managed to activate 6 of the 7 required keys. One more, he gasped through the pain, reaching for the console. Arya threw herself at the terminal. Central Core, emergency countermand. Authorization Tran Delta 9. The system hesitated, conflicting commands creating momentary confusion in its processes. Arya had only basic emergency override capabilities, enough to pause the sequence temporarily, but not stop it completely. Ravi, she called, can you reverse this? He was already beside her, fingers working feverishly. He's locked out normal countermands. We'd need to rewrite the core protocols to stop it now. How long? Hours, maybe days. We don't have hours, Leah interrupted, pointing to the environmental monitors. Delta rainforest oxygen levels are critical. People are dying. The weight of decision pressed down on Arya. They couldn't stop Terminus in time to save everyone. But perhaps they could redirect it. What if we sacrificed one zone to save the others, she suggested, the words bitter in her mouth. Contain the protocol execution to Delta only? Sacrifice an entire biome? Leah looked horrified. It's already compromised, Arya pointed out. If we don't contain this, all of Eden dies. Ravi worked through the possibilities. It could work. We can't stop the kill switch, but we might be able to isolate it, channel all its destructive protocols into Delta, then sever its connections to the other zones. Do it, Arya decided, and initiate emergency evacuation for all Delta residents. As Ravi implemented the changes, Jax and the other security officers restrained Tyron, who had recovered from the stun and was watching with cold fury. You're making a mistake, he hissed. The surface dwellers won't stop. They'll take everything. Maybe, Arya acknowledged. But we'll face that threat together, as a community, not through the unilateral decision of one man willing to sacrifice thousands. Across Eden, evacuation sirens wailed. Citizens of the Delta Zone streamed toward emergency shelters in adjacent sectors, confusion and fear evident on their faces. Medical teams rushed to treat those already affected by the deteriorating conditions. In Central Core's control room, the full council had assembled, watching in horror as Arya and Ravi's desperate plan unfolded. On massive screens, they could see the Delta rainforest, once the crown jewel of Eden's ecosystem, beginning to wither and die as the contained kill switch executed its deadly protocols. We should have been told, Chairwoman Lee said, her voice heavy with regret. About Terminus, about the surface dwellers, all of it. Nash believed knowledge of the kill switch would create panic. Another council member replied, and Tyron feared knowledge of the surface would lead to mass emigration. Instead, we have this. Lee gestured to the screens, where the artificial sun above Delta flickered and died, plunging the biome into darkness. In the Special Projects Laboratory, Arya, Ravi, and their unlikely allies watched the same grim scene unfold. The beauty of Delta, its towering trees, flowing streams, and diverse wildlife was fading before their eyes, sacrificed to save the remainder of Eden. "It's working," Ravi confirmed, monitoring the isolation protocols. "Terminus is contained. The other zones are stabilizing." Arya felt no triumph, only a profound sadness. How many didn't evacuate in time? "Too many," Leah replied softly. "The hospitals are overwhelmed." As the hours passed, the full extent of the disaster became clear. Delta Rainforest, home to over 20,000 citizens and the source of nearly 30% of Eden's oxygen production, was effectively destroyed. The artificial ecosystem that had taken decades to perfect had been reduced to a dark, lifeless cavern in less than a day. The council convened an emergency session, declaring martial law throughout Eden, while they assessed the damage and developed recovery plans. Tyron was placed in detention, awaiting trial for crimes against the community. 3 days after what was already being called the Delta collapse, Arya stood at an observation point, overlooking the ruined biome. Emergency lighting cast long shadows across the dead landscape. Cleanup crews moved through the destruction like ants, collecting samples and clearing debris. "I thought I'd find you here," Ravi said, joining her at the railing. "The council's asking for you. They're forming a recovery committee." "Recovery," Arya repeated hollowly. "Can you recover something that's been completely destroyed?" "Not recovered. Rebuilt." Ravi placed a hand on her shoulder. "Different, but perhaps better." "Better how? Thousands dead. An entire ecosystem gone. How is that better?" "Because now we have the truth," he said simply. "About Terminus. About the surface world. No more secrets. No more unilateral decisions by people like Tyran." Arya considered this. The council had already begun releasing information about the surface world to Eden citizens, carefully, to avoid panic. But honestly, initial fear had given way to cautious curiosity. Some even spoke of establishing communication, of eventual reconciliation between the two branches of humanity. "The seed vault survived," she said finally. "Delta's original genetic library is intact. We can regrow the forest, eventually. And in the meantime, we adapt. Reconfigure the other zones to compensate for the lost oxygen production. Redesign living spaces to accommodate Delta's displaced citizens." A spark of determination ignited within her. "We rebuild, but not in isolation this time. The council's discussing opening diplomatic channels with the surface." "Tyron would call that surrender," Ravi noted. "Tyron was willing to murder millions to maintain control," Arya countered. "I'd rather take my chances with honesty and cooperation." In the weeks that followed, Eden transformed. The tragedy of Delta became a catalyst for long overdue changes. The council was restructured to include representatives from each residential sector, not just appointed experts. Central Core's protocols were made transparent, with multiple safeguards against unilateral actions by any individual or group. Most significantly, Terminus was permanently dismantled. Teams of engineers and programmers, led by Ravi, methodically removed every trace of the kill switch from Central Core's systems. In its place, they installed a community oversight protocol that required widespread consensus for any major system changes. Arya found herself appointed director of the Green Revival Initiative, a massive project aimed at gradually restoring the Delta Rainforest. The work would take years, perhaps decades, but it offered hope to a community still reeling from near extinction. 6 months after the collapse, Arya stood in what had once been Delta's central plaza. Around her, the first signs of rebirth had appeared. Seedlings grew in carefully monitored plots, their tender leaves reaching toward new artificial sunlight. The air still smelled of synthetic compounds, rather than rich forest scents. But it was a beginning. A group of children from Eden schools moved through the area on a field trip, their excited chatter filling the space with life. They stopped near Arya's workstation, wide-eyed as they took in the emerging landscape. Is it true the trees will grow as tall as buildings? One asked. Eventually, Arya smiled. But trees take time. Your grandchildren might be the ones to see them reach full height. Then why plant them now? Another child wondered. The question gave Arya pause. Why indeed? The pragmatic answer involved oxygen cycles and ecosystem stability. But there was a deeper truth. Because that's what it means to build something that lasts, she said finally. You plant seeds knowing you might never see the fullest expression of what they become. But you plant them anyway, because others will. The children seemed to consider this, their young faces thoughtful beyond their years. They had grown up in an artificial paradise where everything was designed for immediate perfection. The concept of patient cultivation, of investing in a future beyond one's own experience, was novel. As the group moved on, Leah Kim approached, carrying a tablet filled with medical data. The latest health assessments from the displaced communities, she reported. Respiratory issues are declining. The adaptations to the other zone's oxygen production are working. Good, Arya nodded. And the communications with the surface? Progressing slowly. There's distrust on both sides, of course. But the initial exchange protocols have been established. They're sending a delegation next month. Are we ready for that? Arya wondered aloud. I don't know, Leah admitted. But isolation nearly destroyed us. I think we have to try a different approach. That evening, Arya visited Jax in the security headquarters. After his role in stopping Tyron, he had been promoted to head a new division focused on transparent governance and accountability. The former guard had revealed surprising depths of principle beneath his once stoic exterior. How are the integration efforts going? She asked, after they had exchanged greetings. Challenging, he admitted. Many security personnel were loyal to Tyron's philosophy. Retraining them to value transparency over control takes time. Everything worthwhile does, Arya observed, thinking of the seedlings in Delta. The council approved your proposal, Jax informed her. The memorial will be constructed at Delta Center, a reminder of what we lost and what we're working to rebuild. The memorial had been Arya's idea, not a monument to tragedy, but a living installation that would evolve as Delta regrew around it. At its heart would be a simple inscription: Paradise is not given, but grown. On the eve of the surface delegation's arrival, Eden held a community assembly in the central hub. Citizens gathered by the thousands to hear the council's update and prepare for this historic meeting. The mood was a complex mixture of anticipation, anxiety, and hope. Chairwoman Lee addressed the crowd, her normally formal demeanor softened by the gravity of the moment. Tomorrow, we end 50 years of separation, she began. We meet our cousins from the surface not as adversaries, but as fellow survivors of humanity's greatest crisis. What they have built above, what we have built below, both represent the indomitable human spirit. From her position near the stage, Arya watched the faces in the crowd. So many had lost loved ones in the Delta collapse. So many had been displaced, their lives irrevocably changed. Yet here they stood, ready to face the next chapter. Our history with the surface has been marked by distrust and misinformation, Lee continued. That ends now. Whatever differences exist between our societies, whatever challenges lie ahead, we will face them with honesty and transparency. After the assembly, Arya returned to her laboratory in the emerging Delta Zone. The temporary structures hummed with activity, even at this late hour, as scientists and engineers prepared demonstrations of Eden's technology for the visitors. Ravi found her there, reviewing growth projections for the new forest. Nervous about tomorrow? He asked, perching on the edge of her desk. Terrified, she admitted with a small laugh. What if they're nothing like us? What if 50 years apart has changed humanity into two incompatible species? Technically impossible in evolutionary terms, Ravi noted with his characteristic precision. But I take your point. Cultural divergence could be significant. Or they could be just like us, Arya mused. People trying to build something meaningful from the ruins of the old world. Either way, we meet them as equals. No more secrets, no more kill switches. The surface delegation arrived the following day, through Eden's massive main airlock, a structure that had seldom been used in decades. They were a diverse group, their clothing and technology noticeably different from Eden's, but recognizably human in design and function. Initial exchanges were cautious, formal, laden with the weight of history. But as hours stretched into days, barriers began to fall. The surface representatives spoke of their struggles to reclaim poisoned land, of communities built among the remnants of old cities. Eden citizens shared stories of life beneath the earth, of ecosystems crafted by human hands. 1 week into the visit, Arya gave the delegation a tour of the Delta Restoration Project. Their leader, a weathered woman named Alara, who had climbed the ranks of the surface's governing council, showed particular interest in the seedling nursery. "We've been attempting similar rehabilitation on the most damaged surface areas," she explained, examining a tray of engineered saplings. "With limited success, your bioadaptation techniques could significantly improve our efforts. We'd be happy to share our research," Arya offered. "And perhaps your experience with natural recovery could help us develop more resilient strains." Alara studied her thoughtfully. "You know, when we discovered Eden still existed, many argued for forcible acquisition of your resources. They saw your underground paradise as an escape hatch, built by the elite, while the rest of humanity suffered above." "And what did you argue for?" Arya asked quietly. "Patience. Understanding. I believed if we approached peacefully, we might find not an enemy hoarding resources, but potential allies with knowledge and technologies we lack." A smile creased her weathered face. "It seems I was right." "Not entirely," Arya admitted. "There were those here who viewed you as a threat to be eliminated, rather than engaged. We nearly destroyed ourselves over that fear. Yet here we stand." Alara gestured to the emerging forest around them. "Both imperfect, both rebuilding, both human." In the year that followed the first contact, Eden transformed. The Delta rainforest slowly re-emerged, different from its predecessor but vibrant in its own right. Regular exchanges with the surface brought new ideas, technologies, and perspectives. Some citizens even began undertaking supervised visits above, returning with stories of blue skies and wild landscapes that inspired both wonder and determination to heal Earth's remaining wounds. The memorial at Delta Center evolved as planned, becoming a living installation that incorporated both the history of the collapse and the promise of renewal. Citizens gathered there not in mourning, but in celebration of their community's resilience. On the anniversary of the Delta collapse, Arya stood before the assembled community, now including several permanent residents from the surface who had chosen to join Eden's restoration efforts. "A year ago, we faced extinction," she began, her voice carrying across the newly grown clearing. "Not from external threats, but from fear. Fear that led to secrets that led to catastrophic decisions, made by the few that affected the many." The crowd listened in respectful silence, surface and Eden citizens alike. "We lost Delta Rainforest. We lost friends and family. We lost the illusion of perfect security." Arya gestured to the growing trees surrounding them. "But look at what we've gained. Transparency, partnership, a voice for every citizen in shaping our future." Behind her, the memorial's central element, a living sculpture of intertwined plants, representing the connection between surface and subterranean humanity, glowed softly in the artificial twilight. "True paradise isn't a perfect, unchanging state," she continued. "It's not something imposed from above by omniscient systems or unaccountable leaders. It's what we build together, day by day, choice by choice, sometimes with great cost, always with great care." As Arya concluded her address, the artificial sun of Delta began its programmed setting, bathing the gathering in golden light. The new trees cast long shadows across faces, turned upward in shared purpose and hope. In her quarters that evening, Arya reviewed messages from Surface colleagues, updates on adaptation projects, suggestions for improved communication systems, invitations to visit research installations above. The once impermeable boundary between worlds had become permeable, not through force, but through mutual recognition of shared humanity. Her console chimed with an incoming call from Ravi, who was coordinating a joint cybersecurity initiative with Surface technologists. Council approved the expanded partnership program, he reported excitedly. Next month, we'll welcome 50 Surface scientists for extended residency. Good, Arya smiled. The diversity of perspective will only strengthen our work. There's something else, Ravi added, his expression turning more serious. They've asked me to lead a team to examine the remnants of Terminus code. Not to restore it, but to ensure nothing like it could ever be hidden in our systems again. A vaccine against kill switches, Arya mused. Appropriate. After ending the call, Arya stepped onto her small balcony, overlooking the emerging Delta forest. The artificial stars above, a feature recently added to enhance the psychological well-being of residents, twinkled realistically against the cavern ceiling. Somewhere far above, beyond layers of rock and soil, the real stars shone over a healing earth, surface and depths, natural and engineered, past and future, no longer in opposition, but in conversation. Paradise, Arya reflected, was never a place of perfect stasis. It was this, the continuous, collaborative work of creation, the willingness to plant seeds whose full flowering one might never witness, the courage to face change, not with fear, but with adaptability and shared purpose. In the gentle, artificial breeze, the new trees of Delta swayed, their movements programmed yet somehow containing an element of genuine unpredictability. Eden had been designed as a perfect simulation of nature, but in rebuilding Delta, they had embraced something more authentic than perfection, the beautiful uncertainty of genuine growth. No kill switch could ever destroy that. As the lights of Eden dimmed for the night cycle, Arya made her way back inside, leaving her balcony door open to the sounds of the young forest. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new collaborations, new possibilities. The work of building a true paradise, one founded on transparency, shared responsibility, and hope, continued. And it would continue, day by day, generation by generation, in the depths and on the surface, as long as humanity remembered the most essential lesson of the Delta collapse. Paradise was not a destination to be reached or a state to be maintained, but a journey undertaken together, with eyes open to both possibility and responsibility. In the heart of the reborn forest, a single seed took root, not engineered, not part of any official restoration plan, but carried perhaps by a surface visitor, a wild element introducing itself to this carefully crafted world, unknown and unnoticed. It began its slow growth toward artificial light, carrying within its simple structure the most profound message of all. Life, in all its stubborn persistence, would always find a way forward.